Welcome, everybody, to another powerful broadcast. I mean, it doesn't get any better than this. We're so glad you're with us today because joining us today live is the man, Colin Plume from noblegoldinvestment.com. Colin, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's been a long time. I miss talking to you, and man, there is a lot to talk about. There's a lot.
Wow. I went back and looked at my records, and it's been about 9 or 10 months. And so I thought, okay, there is so much going on to talk about. And you've obviously, I've seen you, as I was saying before we came on the air, I've seen you every day there for a while. I saw you're on the Fox News there for about a minute or so, talking about Noble Gold. And I said, oh, that's so good to see your company's doing well. And according to the Royal Mint, gold sales is doing unbelievably well. A statistic here in 2022, last year, it proved to be a very strong year for bullion demand, with British Royal Mint reporting record sales, a 25% increase in record sales of gold bullion from the year before, 2021, which was a record.
Right.
So what's going on with gold and silver and precious metals in general? I mean, why the explosion of sales and demand?
Well, I don't know. It can't all be this, but obviously the Queen passing, that was the last year of the coin with her effigy on the coins. So that probably had some kind of bump, right? I mean, there's probably people that wanted to buy those coins for having her for the last year, and now the king, will be on the new coins kind of going forward. But the Royal Mint hasn't been a real player in the bullion world for many years. They've started to come out with more interesting coins. They've seen more demand across the board, and they've been able to get out more volume. They have a very strict process with how they make coins, one of the strictest in the world. So, they're a little slower to get coins out, but they typically get coins out that are quite beautiful, and the purity is everything you want. And if you're getting a coin from the Royal Mint, that it's what you're supposed to be getting. So,
right.
So I think coupled with that, just looking at, what happened in Europe, obviously their economy was pretty devastating. I mean, last year, every major asset class had problems. Right. You had, from real estate, interesting numbers with real estate, and that, prices did come down, but just more than anything, there was no volume, right? I think they said 11 straight months of really down sales, home sales. No one's selling because they think their house is going to come back up. And because now people, it's not like before in 2008 where they had to, people could buy a house with no income. People had to put money down now. They had to provide an income. And so I think people are holding on a little bit tighter. You haven't seen the foreclosures rise that much yet. We are seeing it to some extent, but it hasn't gone that extreme yet. So people are just holding. They're not selling because they just don't think the prices are there for them. Stock market obviously was down 10 to 25%, depending on which index you were in. So gold really performed well comparatively to those other things. And so I think, most people have money coming in and they're always sort of looking for things to invest into, and sort of they moved away from their traditional investments and started buying gold. We saw tremendous demand all across the board. And we're seeing it from, who you would think is people, close to retirement, but we're also seeing a huge demographic of younger people in their 30s that weren't typically gold buyers that have, now with this inflation, hitting a number that I think everybody can feel. We've had younger buyers buying the physical metal than we've ever seen. And I think that's sort of changed the dynamic of it, is that, a lot of times when I got into the business 15 years ago, you just see older people that kind of understood the value of money, and more younger people that just felt comfortable with buying things on their phone and this and that. And I think last year sort of was an old school kind of turn back where even younger people were saying, like, maybe I'm not thinking about money the right way. Maybe I need to look at other options. And so I think that's really helped, push the price up. And just internally, we've seen the younger people, younger professionals starting to buy more precious metals.
Yeah, gold outperformed. I mean, a lot of people are going to gold IRAs. It outperformed the S&P 500,
Yeah.
the Dow Jones, Bitcoin, and people were going for tangible assets, something you could actually get your hands on. And even if real estate was moving a little slower, then really precious metals was the only thing that was actually people were getting their hands on. And the year ended with gold over $1,900 an ounce, and yeah, I guess now the projections are it may break the record. We may go over 2,050 or whatever.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think we're going back there pretty easily because we're looking at holding really firm in an economy where they're not really doing a lot of investments right now. Once that opens up again and people start, I think across the board, people are nervous. They've been nervous, and so they haven't been investing the way that they typically would. They've even said like 401k investing is down. So and we have this recession here where we're starting to see a lot of white collar jobs go away. A lot of big tech jobs are going away. So a lot of those people are going to have to go back out to the market. And these are professionals that worked at these big conglomerates and they had these very cush sort of jobs and now they're getting out there and kind of seeing how the landscape is. And companies are being much savvier about hiring, and they're going to be cautious. And I think that's going to stay true until interest rates lower, which in my opinion, I think will happen at the end of this year. I think interest rates will start to come back down. I don't think we're going back to like 2 3/4, the good old days for a while, but I could see us in the high fours, 4.5 range. I could see it there, and that'd be a game changer for real estate. I think it'd be a game changer for a lot of corporations. There's a lot of corporations that need debt. They borrow to expand. So these higher rates, if you look at a typical business, prime plus one or prime plus two, you're talking in the 8 9% range. That's a far cry from them borrowing at 4 or 5%, which is what they were doing a year or two ago.
right.
That's gonna slow things down there. The office commercial market is destroyed. I mean, this COVID and it's gone. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen the pandemic just basically, I think everybody knew more people work from home, but it crushed that whole industry, and it will continue to crush that whole industry. And so they're going to have to get really creative, and they're doing it. A lot of the big REITs are starting to allocate money to turn those buildings into apartments. I think that's what they're going to have to do,
Right.
or condos. But yeah, I mean, it's that industry. It just overnight just got literally destroyed, and it's going to get worse because this year there's a ton of debt coming due, and that was cheap debt. They got 7 10-year debt at 3%, and now they're going to come back at 5%, and then they're going to have 50% vacancy. Who's going to want to lend on that stuff, right?
Nobody. The banks are not going to want to do that, and that means these downtown. I noticed in some of the cities. I mean, look, the Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York. The crime didn't help anything either. I mean, who's going to invest in the big skyscraper or get an office downtown? Nobody wants to go downtown, let alone. And what about retail? I mean, look what COVID and everybody changed their buying habits to strictly online. So retail is really bad.
Yeah, those two sectors have really been hurt, and there's a lot of jobs there, right? There's a lot of jobs that that go into that, the leasing component, the sales component, just outfitting offices. These companies that used to get these massive deals where they put all these computers in offices and they'd have to outfit it. I mean, a lot of that's it's all gone. It's going to people's homes. So there's a lot of sectors that got steamrolled by what happened with COVID and sort of moved. I mean, listen, if COVID didn't happen, this happens in 5 to 6 years, right? And we were trending in this direction.
Yeah.
It just moved things up really quickly. And so the U.S. is going to have to really, really adapt. And I think when you look at, the gig economy and you look at people working remotely and doing all this stuff, a lot of countries have been really, calling for people to work remote. They've been, there's countries you can go to and pay zero tax if you move your business there. So the U.S. is going to have to get more. We're going to have to get more creative for businesses to continue to thrive, because if some of these businesses have this lease debt, they got problems there, and for businesses to thrive, we're gonna have to figure out a way as a country to help them with their bottom line. And I think that moving home and it'll be a good transition eventually. Some companies will still have the office space, but it's going to be a tough few years for that sector.
Yeah, it really will. Well, that kind of looks to the future now. I mean, okay, Davos in Switzerland, they just got done with the World Economic Forum, and this was the largest attendees to ever be at this forum. Over 2,600 or whatever it was. They were from heads of state. There were foreign ministers. The FBI director, Christopher Wray, was there, which I still can't figure out why. But I mean, you had world governments there. And in your opinion, what do you think the next move is? Is it to move the whole world into digital currencies, but something's still there has to be something tangible. We can't just go to paper money or digital money. There has to be something concrete.
Yeah. I think, listen, I mean, I think the world is what happened with the US dollar last year. And, finally that throwback where people they're fed up with what we're doing with our debt. It's just a matter of time. Like what's the number that we go bankrupt? I mean, we're at $32 trillion in debt. Like what becomes unsustainable? And I think that could be a big conversation with all these heads of state is how does the world react if at some point we can't pay back some of this debt, if we literally have to stop paying. And that's sort of in a position that we're getting closer to. I don't know what that number is. Is it 40 trillion? Is it 50? I mean, where does that number, where does it stop where we can't afford it? It reminds me of, I'm a fan of Andrew Jackson, and he was the only president to get us out of debt completely. I don't know if you knew that, but
no, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, he was a big. There was a lot of issues with inflation before he became president, and we had a lot of issues with how there was a lot of industries, cotton, and a number of things got really expensive, and he just felt that there was a lot of manipulation. And so when he became president, he was the only president to ever pay off our debt. And I always think about him when we're at 32 or $30 trillion in debt, how he would feel about this situation that we're in and what we've kind of cooked up here. And even though it seems really great, it's not sustainable. And what we set up this country was that when we put together the Constitution, we put all these things together, was that gold and silver were our money. I mean, that was
we
always
had a gold standard. We had a gold standard.
And so to not that a few hundred years later to have no backing, to be this far in debt, especially because we've been the leader, right? I mean, we've been an economic leader for a long time, and so that to know that we've fallen off this far in the U.S. is frankly quite scary. And so, yeah, I think that's the big issue, and that's why I think gold is really primed, and also silver. Something interesting happened last year with silver was, the Indian market is finally exposed to silver now. They didn't have. See, the Indian market has always loved gold. They do it for their weddings. They do it for jewelry. I mean, they've loved buying gold, and they never had access to a lot of silver. So last year they opened up ETFs in India. And just to give you an idea of how much was bought there, they said about 700 million ounces of silver was bought into these funds.
Wow.
Silver. They only mine about 800 million ounces a year, 800, 840 per year in silver. So they, in 1 year, basically bought the majority of what was mined. Now, obviously, there's a lot of silver above ground, so it's not right out there. But just to give you an idea, that's a whole wide open market of investors, young people. That country is really growing, very entrepreneurial spirit there, and so they've just started to get exposed to the silver market, and the silver market is so small comparatively to the gold market.
Right.
So, that's been pretty interesting. So I always tell people, don't forget, we do sell silver. Don't forget about silver. I think a lot of times people only think about gold because obviously it's shiny and beautiful and jewelry and all those reasons, but silver is a fantastic industrial metal, and the uses have grown really substantially over the last few years.
So now that we talk about in Davos meeting and everything going on, we also are looking at a potential. We already have a war going on in Europe. There's no
Yeah.
question. And the amount of money that the United States is sending in arms and in sophisticated equipment, what have you, is a big number. And it's going to affect our debt. But at the same time, is that also, could it be, and I hope to God it's not, that the war could expand in Europe and cause America to get more involved in what we are? How does that play out?
How can we not get more involved? Like,
I don't know.
it's like, how long, how far can you go in and then pull back, right? I mean,
I know. You can't.
That's the real issue.
Yes.
With going this aggressively. And, I'm not saying it's the wrong thing. Like, obviously, I think what Putin's doing is
Right.
not justified, but we are putting ourselves in harm's way. And we're putting ourselves in a position where there's kind of no end in sight. It's
No end game. There's no end game.
There's no end game, because obviously Russia's not going to balk, and we're not going to do it either. So that's sort of how does somebody win? I don't know how somebody wins in this situation. So it's really hard. I mean, if you go back over history, I mean, the U.S. has been pulled into a lot of wars, and there's been certain presidents that have tried to avoid, getting involved, in certain things. As a country, the less involved we are, we typically, there's some growth in wartime too, but it's not sustainable growth, right? It's more debt driven.
Right.
As during times when, when President Trump was in office, the economy really flourished because we weren't really as engaged. I know we had Afghanistan and we were pulling out of there, but we didn't have anything that was really pulling us. And the economy really, really flourished during that time period. So it is scary. I am concerned about it. And I do think that's, one of the main reasons people have been so nervous to do anything. I think there's a real paralysis, happening right now.
Well, could that be a reason? Also, another reason that gold and silver is a great ideal to set up. I mean, if I look at my 401k, and I used to have the 401k, I don't have it anymore. Back in the day when I was working in corporate America, and I remember during the 2001 attack, about 30% of my 401k disappeared. Okay, like everybody else's, and so I just pulled mine all out and rolled it all into cash. And I wish I had put it into precious metals, but I didn't know that. Today, people are looking at the things and saying, maybe I should put it in precious metals. I mean, at least it won't evaporate, because gold and silver have been extremely consistent. Gold for 5,000 years has been consistent.
Yeah.
So you see that trend?
I do think that there's opportunities in a lot of different markets. And I do look at, what's happening in the stock market. And I think that, some of the major shifts, the layoffs in some of these companies will probably make them much more profitable down the road. I think they were probably too heavy on labor. So, these companies, they look at the statistics, and, they must have determined that it makes sense for them to let go some of that staff. And obviously there's a lot of AI components that are coming into play here too, right?
Right.
A lot of those jobs are probably going to get replaced, by a lot of the AI that's coming out, these new technologies. So I think there's, it's all about how long you can stay in something typically, and what you look at. Gold and silver, I look at it as your insurance policy. I look at it as something that's going to be a little bit stabler than some of the other investments, are less volatile. But I also look at it as it's so accessible, and it's, if you need it, you got it, and you can get it. You can cash it out pretty easily, depending on what you're buying. But with us, like, because we sell bullion, coins, and bars, like, everything's liquid with us, or anywhere in the world. Like, if you had to go anywhere in the world, the products that we sell, people would buy them. And that's why I've always focused on the purest, the bars and coins that everybody knows, as opposed to some of the companies that we compete against that sell so many coins, and the coin values can range, and some of them have a Superman on it and all this stuff, which is cute and fine. But at the end of the day, like, does someone want a Superman coin, or do they just want to get
Well, yeah. Do they just want the actual gold
Yeah,
itself?
they
Right.
want. And by the way, those Superman coins, they sell a lot of those
Yeah.
Batman coins, but then the problem is when somebody wants to sell those Superman coins back, how many people are buying that? What if you're a Batman fan? It's no, I'm joking, but
I got it.
that's true though. At the end of the day, whereas you buy a coin from the Royal Mint, right? One of the biggest places to buy it, the most verified. You don't have to. That there's a buyer anywhere in the world. No one's going to turn
Right.
down the coin. So I think that today the buyers are getting savvier, investors are getting savvier, and I think they're starting to learn that you can't have all your eggs in one basket, because right now, if you had a lot of your portfolio just stuck strictly in the stock market and you needed to liquidate last year, you were going to take a loss. That's it. And so whereas if you had precious metals and you'd bought it a while back, you could have liquidated that precious metals at a higher point, and then waited. Because hopefully everyone's portfolios over time, they have these different assets, and hopefully there's still Social Security that they have as a backup, hopefully, and those things can help you down the road. So
There's quite a few people watching live right now. And here's a question by BP Earthwatch. Says, Paul, could you ask, should we use U.S. Mint coins because of the ability to cash in?
Well, it is an interesting question in that, the Silver Eagle and the American Eagle and these coins are obviously very beautiful coins, and coins that the U.S. Mint does a great job of, and they also have some other coins that they've released over the last, so they're really spectacular. The problem right now is that the U.S. Mint, their standard for purity on gold and silver is extremely high, what they'll use to mint coins. And it makes it very difficult in a situation where you have most mints, private or governmental mints, are having a really difficult time getting enough actual blanks of gold and silver. And so because they have such a particular way that they buy, they have never been able to keep up with demand. And so they've had a huge shortage over the last few years. They haven't been able to keep up. That being said, that shortage, what it does is that it does, if you get those coins, people, they want them and they'll pay, but you're paying a massive premium too. So you're paying a lot when you buy them, which I'm not a huge fan of, obviously, but you'll get a little bit more when you sell them. There's buyers for them, but you're not going to make up the difference. Ounce for ounce, you're not going to make up the difference. So, you want to get either bars or coins that have the right purity, you buy them from a dealer that knows what they're doing, that has a track record like Noble Gold. But I don't know if you necessarily want to focus on the U.S. Mint right now until they kind of figure out their situation. Because at the end of the day, the more you can get bang for your dollar, the better it's going to be down the road, right? And that's just in terms of just in general, like, avoiding some of these, there's a lot of these rare coins and stuff like that. And if you're not sophisticated, you want to stay away from those products, because you're just not going to get as much value there. So I would say for now, probably avoid it. And I guess the question is like liquidation, right? Can I liquidate other products? Any of the smart dealers like us that are buying the right product, right? We're using the right mints. Anyone will buy those products, including us. Like there's huge demand for them, so you're never going to have an issue.
Right. Matter of fact, here's one of the coins you're giving away. Actually, if you guys set up an IRA, $50,000 or more, you get 1/4 of an ounce of American Eagle gold coin. Beautiful coin, and
yeah, absolutely. One of the top sellers, and we send that to your doorstep as a gift. And for people that haven't looked into gold before or silver, and it seems complicated, I think that's one of the things that we've really focused on at Noble Gold, is making it uncomplicated. Really explain the process. Because when you get into it, there's so many coins, there's so many bars, and we've really streamlined it down to the coins that have the highest weight, highest purity, and our team does a great job of explaining those different products. Now, we have for people that know what they're doing and are interested. We have rare coins, but those are for
Right.
people that know that 95% of the people are going to buy bullion coins and bars. But we have people in there. We have sales associates that know a lot about rare coins. So if you're interested, and it's fun once you built a collection, to buy a 1921, St. Gaudens coin, a beautiful coin. And to be honest, a lot of those rare coins are not that much more than bullion right now. You can pick up some really interesting coins. I don't know if we've ever talked about this, Pastor, but there's a coin from about in 1907 they took the "In God We Trust" off the coin. Do you know about this?
No, I didn't. They took it off the coin.
Yeah, because and forgive me if I have the wrong president, but I believe it was Roosevelt was president, and maybe it's not Roosevelt, but I believe it is. And basically, what happened was he wanted to take off "In God We Trust." And by the way, we've had that on our currency forever.
Forever. Yeah.
And he decided he wanted to take it off because he didn't think it was good that these coins were being used in bars and in brothels. So
Okay.
he made the determination. Now, Congress caught wind of it and they were furious. So he was only able to make these coins for like, I think it's 6 or 7 months. And then they reversed it. They went back. So there's these coins from 1907, these St. Gaudens, they're 1 ounce coins. And they look like the American Eagle coin. That's how the American Eagle coin came about. And they're called no motto. So they took the "In God We Trust" off.
And
And
there's no motto on them.
there's
So
no
just no
motto on
motto.
it. Everything else is there. So you can buy. So there's coins like this that have these really interesting stories. And it was a short time period, and those coins are not very expensive, but they have a kind of a cool story behind it.
Right. Right.
And so that there's a lot of those kind of stories with the older coins that you can buy into. But for most people, it's they're buying what you have, the American Eagle coin or bars or things of that nature. That's gonna, if we get into a bartering situation and you're gonna want those items. No one's gonna care that there's no motto on it, right?
No, no. And really, that's one thing we have to keep in mind, because our money was on the gold standard. I think it was during Richard Nixon's presidency that we went off the gold standard. A lot of people really feel we should go back to it because our money doesn't have that value.
Mhm.
And so is it a good thing when you start talking 31, $32 trillion in debt, and these guys are just in the middle of the night passing these incredible spending bills without anybody reading it? At some point, does China, who probably owns most of our debt, call the note, and what happens? Is there a scramble then for anything tangible that has
Yeah.
an asset?
Yeah, I mean, the problem with the debt is it's so divided on where to make the cuts, right? I mean, that's the real issue. And I just don't know, unless at the end of the day, until there's a reason to not increase the debt, like until we put something in place that makes it that they can't increase it, we will always increase it, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
if you give a young person a credit card and they spend the $2,000 and then you go, don't worry about it, we'll bump it up to 4,000. Guess what? They're going to
It's
spend
going to 4,000.
$4,000. And it's going to go there pretty fast too.
Yeah, yeah.
We've created a situation where there's idle threats sort of on both sides, and we could never really get to a resolution where we can stop the spending that's going on, unfortunately. And so, and it comes from a lot of different sides. And there's a lot of things that we probably need to trim. But as long as we know we can continue to push that credit card up, there's no end in sight, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. So interest rates are going up. That means the housing market's slowing down. The debt is going up. The job market's slowing down.
Yeah,
This is kind of though by design. I've heard the Fed chair keeps talking about that. Jerome Powell. I know that they felt that because of inflation, they had to slow down our economy. The problem is real people are caught in the steamroll.
yeah.
Real companies, real jobs, real families get caught in the steamroll. Do you think this is going to continue for a couple more years under this current administration?
Uh,
Uh,
I mean,
what-
I think they're gonna lower interest rates at the end of this year. That's my opinion. I don't think they're gonna keep interest rates high. I think they're going to make this year's going to be rough, and I think that there's going to be a movement, a pivot, and I think interest rates get back in the fours, in my opinion, high fours on residential, because it's such a big job market, and labor market in residential real estate. And if they want any chance to keep unemployment in the range that we're in right now, they're going to need to keep those things moving. And
Right.
if people's values continue to drop and they're not selling, it just creates a whole market of nothing happening, no transactions. And also you got to look at the government too. Is a lot of states, a lot of the money that is made on property tax. So if they can't continue to move and get prices continuing to go up, then there's a lot of tax money that they're missing
Right.
out. Fees, right? I mean, think about all the fees when you're building a house and all the permits and all that stuff. I mean, the government, it needs that stuff to survive. So they're not going to keep, in my opinion, they're not keeping interest rates. I think they're gonna test the market till the end of this year, and then I think interest rates start to come down. I wouldn't be surprised if we see inflation hit the fives, like maybe even the high fours. I don't think it's going to go much lower than that this year. I'd be surprised. But listen, if you raise interest rates so dramatically, like the way that they did, of course you're gonna slow down inflation a little bit, because people are gonna just stop buying stuff. They're gonna slow down production. They're gonna slow down, and we're starting to see it. We're starting to see a lot of those things happen. So I think this is like one of those years where just kind of we're flat. Nothing, not much happens. But then I think the end of the year, I think November, December, they turn and interest rates pop down, and we see a big bump, and the trends will start picking back up again.
Right. Folks, again, this is Colin Plume with us from noblegoldinvestment.com. And you can call his offices at 877-646-5347. That's 877-646-5347. And find you, because you guys give a little bit of advice here when people call. I mean, they're sitting there saying, okay, I got a savings account. Most people have not made hardly any interest on their savings account the last 4 to 5 years, or they got a 401k that maybe they've just lost their job or just left their job. They're sitting there with that 401k. Can they roll it over? How difficult is that?
Yeah, it's not hard. I will tell you, interest on savings accounts in the last like 4 months have actually gone up.
I know.
I've been getting calls where I was like 4%,
4%, yeah,
which and not locked in. I mean, but obviously inflation's at. So it's funny because it's really not that much different, because before they said inflation was at 2% and they'd give you 0.25%, right?
right.
Now inflation's at 6%, so they're going to give you 4%, right? It's
4%.
about a 2% spread, right?
Right.
It's kind of where things are at. But if you forget that there's inflation, 4% seems kind of exciting. You're like, wow, I've been having this money sit there for a while. So yeah, but I don't think that'll last long. I think that's just kind of temporary. A lot of it has to do with people just pulling money out of the banks, right? They need money.
They need the cash.
They live on lending, right? And lending slowed down, so the banks were like, well, I guess we have to raise the amount we pay on CDs. They were sort of forced into that sort of situation because they need deposits. I mean,
right.
It's I've had banks call me and say, yeah, we're going through an audit. Can you? I'm like, well, let me think about it, but I'm not doing that. Obviously, I'm not putting more money in any bank so you can get through an audit. But I've had those conversations. So I think that when we look at how gold and silver performed, gold was up to about 2% last year. Silver was up about the same, maybe closer to 3%. But in terms of whole, compared to all those other assets, it performs incredibly. So I think this year will also be another great year for gold, and I think silver above 30 is sort of a no-brainer this year.
Is it because of the green, the green initiatives, the solar panels, the everything going into that direction? It seems like silver. I always keep telling myself silver's going to go to someday. It's going to be $50 an ounce. At
least, yeah. It'll be 100. I think in 10 years it's at 100.
That's got a big that's got a high ceiling. That has a high ceiling right now. If you was to get
for a lot of our institutional investors, that don't want to get into like SLV, or they don't want to buy the stock version, they love buying from us because we can just store. Because if you're that's the only issue with silver is like, or if you travel a lot, like how much do you want to have in your house, right? You want to have it
right
we can store it and it's liquid for them at any point, right? If they want to sell, they can just call us and we'll buy it back from them. So, I agree with you. I love the price of silver this year. I think that the uses are continuing. I mean, California is pushing so far on solar panels, electric vehicles, and all this stuff. So, it's going to have to, they got to use silver in those. They use silver in those components. There's also gold in those vehicles too. So both of those metals have a lot of exciting industrial, moves that are happening, and a funny trend that's been happening. I think you get a kick out. I know you lost a lot of weight, even. Is that there's a lot of these places now that are putting 24 karat gold on your steak. Have you seen this?
No.
This is a new trend. Yeah. So I'm not
24 on your steak.
Yeah, they'll put like a gold foil on over you.
I am not. That's not me. Look, I've not eaten in any. I can't get. I can't afford those. I've never seen it, but that's a new presentation, I guess. To the
now that I said it, it's out there. I mean,
it's out there now. Everybody's going to be looking for that. What steakhouse? It's already Chris, or are we going higher level than that? I mean,
it's already gratuitous, right? The steakhouse experience, right? So it's just like how far, think about the seafood tower, right? Like how,
right.
The seafood towers, it's 8 feet above your head and you're grabbing a claw up there. Now it's the gold on top of the steak.
Gold foil over the steak.
Yeah, but you can, and I'm not a doctor, but they say you can eat a little bit of it. I've never tried it, but the reason I brought it up is that part of the reason gold has become more of an industrial metal and more in it's a lot of medical devices that people put in their body. And the reason is that it doesn't corrode, and it's unlike some of the other things they put in your body. So, there's a lot of new things happening with these metals that people don't even think about. And that's the thing that makes it interesting about gold is, when you talk to somebody for the first time, they just think it's jewelry. They just think about gold teeth. They think about, but then if you really look at all the uses and you look at it, and then you look at central banks holding gold, right? And they're holding it in their vaults. There's really nothing like it in the world. It can't be manufactured like diamonds, right?
Nope.
I've looked at these, diamonds, these manufactured diamonds. You can't tell. You can tell.
No, you can be fooled with that.
You can tell. Yeah, they look exact. But gold is unique in that way, and it's limited, and so it's such a unique metal in that, and everybody that gets married, they're always going to gold. Maybe they go to platinum or, but that's the go-to metal for when you get married, a ring or jewelry or whatever. I mean, it's what people they show as having value. And that's why it's always been such a unique metal. It's just always continued to grow.
Even in the Bible, God had the Ark of the Covenant encased in gold, and the entire inside of the temple, the walls, everything was gold. And so, that means God's put a high value on gold as a special metal. I mean, it's the best. I know one thing. Israel Hall, who's my sound guy, he will not even mess with any wires for sound that if it's not gold, he don't do it, because he said gold is the absolute purest electricity.
Yeah, it's a great conductor.
It's absolutely the best conductor. So, as you said, gold has a tremendous amount of options and things it's used for, and it's precious. It's why it's a precious metal. It really is.
Yeah, and a fun fact about me: I did not get a gold ring for my wedding because I would lose it. And I said to my wife, I got a ring that's not gold, because I said, I'm going to lose it and I'm going to be upset. And she got some, but I didn't. And, but I've always thought maybe later on, settle down a little bit. Maybe I won't lose the ring, but it's one of those things. But, I think that in this day and age, things are kind of coming back. And I think that in this new economy, what we're seeing is there's a transition of, there was all these great, jobs and flexibility, but now people are coming back to work. I think that's happening out there. I think that a lot of these mid-level jobs are sort of going away, and now it's about what you can do in your job, and less about where you got your degree. It's less about what's on your resume, but it's really about what you can get done. and your
Right.
attitude. And to be honest, in a way, I think that's a great thing for the future. I think that's going to be a lot better, because I think a lot of people were in a bad position because they never got a degree, or they never they got their MBA, but they were highly skilled, or highly, high aptitude. Maybe school wasn't for them, but I think we're really moving away from that, and a lot of the companies are just looking at, what can you accomplish in your day, and how successful can you be. So I think in the grand scheme of it, things are moving back in the right direction, even with all these people being let go. It's really going to be about production, and I think that people that are working hard, that are dedicated, are going to thrive in this economy.
Yep. Yep. Cream will always rise to the top, no matter
Absolutely.
what it is. So just got to stay in there.
Absolutely.
Colin, this has really been good. Let's keep these going. I got to talk to you more often. I learned too much.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's been a while. I appreciate you having me on. Always, you look great, and continued great health to you, obviously, and your family. So appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for being a partner with us here with our ministry. We truly appreciate it. We really do.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And may God continue to bless Noble Gold. I want to see you on Fox News again.
Okay.
All right. We'll see you, Colin. Folks, noblegoldinvestment.com. That's www.noblegoldinvestment.com. Go to their website, check it out, or put a call in there and talk to them about, let them help you shape your financial future. I think you'll be glad you did. So, Colin, we'll see you again next time.
Thank you.
God bless.